everyone, welcome to the conditional. This is a bit of a fun verb tense in French. It's kind of manageable compared to some of the other verb tenses. What's really nice about this verb tense is that there's no like extra E's and S's and crazy stuff. There's just a few different endings and some tricky roots, and that's kind of the basis here. So the conditional, what this means is think like in English, like it's a condition. If a condition is met, then something would happen. So one of the best examples we can say is like, if you won the lottery, what would you do? You know, like I would buy a house, I would go to France, I would, you know, get the really expensive ketchup. I don't know. So that's the conditional is the kind of, what would you do if something were to make what you want to do happen? So we've got three translations. We've got would, could, and should. The only thing is that could and should, these are very specific verbs. So let me just write this down before I forget. Should is the meaning when you use the verb devoir, and could is the meaning when you use the verb pouvoir. All other verbs are the meaning of would. So for example, here, let me show you in French. We have like je mangerai. This is a conditional little sentence. And so word by word, you have je means I. Manger, we know this verb is to eat. So it's eat, and then the AIS is what makes it the word would. So I think what's really tricky for people who are not native French speakers is that we want a separate word for would, because in English we have it, it's right there. It's like I would eat, and we wonder like, what is the word for would? But it's not, it's like an entire verb tense. So it's kind of weird to have an idea replaced by a verb tense. Like, when else does that happen? That's really, really tricky. We're like, I just want one word, and you're like, no, you have to learn a whole lot of stuff before you can figure out how to say would. So the thing is that the idea of would is actually just implied in the ending. So for the most part, the general rule is that you take the whole verb, you plunk it down, you put on the ending, and now that means like I would eat, or I would whatever your verb is. So let me just baby steps here. Let me show you how this works. So let's say we have an ER verb, and let's say it's like just the verb aimer. And if you wanted to say like I would love, what you do is you'd have your pronoun, you'd have your je. I'm gonna fix this in a minute. Let's say you've got your verb, you've got aimer. ER verbs are really nice. We just plunk down the entire verb. I'm going to put on my ending, AIS. I'll explain to you guys how to do the ending in a minute. And then I just have to make sure that this part is correct. I get rid of my E, put in the apostrophe. And now, oh, that's not going to work, whatever. Now it's j'aimerais. I would like. There's my verb. So with all ER verbs that are regular, this is how this works. You simply put down the verb, you put down the ending, and then you're done. So it's quite manageable. The next one, IR verbs, is quite nice. It's the same sort of thing. So let's take the verb choisir. We do the exact same sort of thing. We put in our pronoun. If I wanted to say like I would choose, je. I can actually even just show you. Just I take my whole verb, je choisir, and then I put in AIS. So I put my ending over here. It's actually just kind of connected. And there it is, like I would choose. Je choisirais. And as you guys can see, it's like I would choose. Word by word. It just happens that in English we have 3 words, and in French it's 2, right? Like je choisirais, it's only 2 words. In English, I would choose 3 words. So we're thrown off by that we're like, this does not feel equal, and that's kind of what's hard for us. With RE verbs, let me just back up. The French teacher I had in high school, he was awesome. He had this little quirky little picture that he used to draw, and I loved it. It was so silly. He would have the verb, and he'd have like this dragon thing, and he's like, the future is really rough, and he makes a really good point. Every verb in the future tense, there's an R in it somewhere. And so, for example, it was like, we just saw, it was like je, C-H-O-I-S-I, je choisir, and then we'd have the ending, je choisirai. So what's really key to know is that before any ending you can have in the conditional, there has to be an R. If there's no R, it's not conditional. The verb doesn't even have to start with an R. It doesn't even have to have an R in it. At some point, no, actually we'll have an R in it. That's so stupid. There's going to be an R at the end. So as long as there's an R in it, you know that you're probably likely going to be correct with your conditional. If all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know, what do I take off? I took off too much. Yeah, if you don't have an R, you have definitely taken off too much. So the thing with RE verbs, though, is like, let's say with vendre, if French are really funny with sounds, like they really want everything to sound nice, so fair enough. I mean, maybe English should take a lesson from that, because I don't know, whatever. So if I had like je, and then I just had vendre, and then I had AIS, it would be je vendrier. And I guess they just don't like the sound of that. So with all RE verbs, we just get rid of the E. It's kind of funny. I guess this is what we do. So let me just give you another one. Let's say the verb is vendre. What I do is I take my pronoun, my person, I take my verb prendre. I get rid of my E, I put on my ending, and I'm done. So ER and IR are the regular verbs. They're fabulous. They're so easy. You like, bleh, just stick it onto the piece of paper and it's done. RE verbs are like just a fraction more confusing. You just take off the E and then you can, take the verb, put it down, put on the endings. The next one, just so I don't forget, so are irregular verbs. This is so frustrating. I don't know why the French had to have irregular verbs. As you guys can see from the list, this is a little bit ludicrous how, like, être, for some reason, like we could have easily just taken off the E. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me just make this bigger. So let's say for the verb être, they decided that the root would be ser. My whole thinking is, I'm like, why didn't you just go like this? There, you still got your R, and put in your ending, AIS. I mean, that would have been totally fine. I don't know why they didn't do that. But for some reason, they're like, être? No, let's make it ser. And you're like, but where did you get ser from? Like, what is that? And they're like, doesn't matter, just go with it. All right, so with être, the root is now ser. And then with, like, for example, avoir, it's AUR. Again, like, avoir already ends in an R. You could have just been like, j'avoirai, and it would have sounded fine. But instead they were like, no, make it AUR. And you're like, oh, I hate this. So all of these verbs here on this list, those are all the irregular verbs. And unfortunately, there's really no logic into how they got from the verb to the root. You just simply have to memorize it. But once you have these guys down, then the rest are actually quite manageable. They just kind of follow a pattern. And, all right, now I'm going to show you the endings. So where these endings came from, who knows? They're a little bit random. What's kind of nice, though, is that you might have already seen them in the imparfait. And they do repeat in other verb tenses. But it's not like they come from the verb avoir or they come from some other verb. It's like, where did they even come from? Who knows? What's really funny, though, is that 6 of the 8 sound the same. So, like, literally, A. And you're like, but hang on a second. These have 3 letters, and these have 5, and they're different letters. And you're like, And you're like, but they sound the same. And yep, they do. So on the bright side, it kind of helps with your pronunciation. If ever you're not too sure how to say it, just do the Canadian A, and you've probably pronounced it correctly. So let me now show you. Let's do another one. So let's say, let's just conjugate the verb together. Let's just do être. So your first step to conjugating in the conditional is you write down your pronouns. You're just writing down your people words. This is step 1. Vous, il, elle. The next step is you have to figure out what is your root. I always use red for the ending, so I think I just might have messed you up. Let me just copy this in a different color just in case you follow this. So what is your root? With être, it happens to be ser. Again, no logic, but that's just the way it is. Ser. Kind of interesting because you have a bit of a Spanish connection there. So ser. Again, what's really frustrating is a lot of times people are like, but why? Why is it this way? I'm sure there's a reason. I don't know the reason. French happened so long ago when these patterns kind of came to. So who knows why it is the way it is? And we just have to memorize it. Because again, I know you might be frustrated and you're like, but why? Why is être ser? Don't waste your time on why. Just memorize it. That's what it is. So now we put in our endings. So, and again, you're like, what are my endings? And again, there's nothing logical about the endings. You're not like, oh, totally takes an AIS. That is very logical. No, there's 3 random letters that at some point people decided, hey, this is a really good ending. Even though it sounds the exact same as like ER and E with an accent and whatever. So the only way to really know the endings are to look them up and then memorize them. It's not like you're gonna, whatever. Hang on. So here are our endings, and I'll go over pronunciation in a minute. So here's the pronunciation, just so you guys can see how that goes. It's like je serai, tu serais, il serait, elle serait. Now it's like a little, actually, let me just carry on. Il serait and elle serait. So it's a little bit tricky because you're like, well, hang on, what is the difference? Like, serait, 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 serait. You're like, how am I supposed to hear the difference? It's based on context. If, let's say you're talking about one guy in particular and you're like, il serait riche, mais na 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 na, you're not going to be like, oh, are they talking about the plural il? No, you're talking about one guy. It's clearly going to be the singular il. So you have to kind of base your sentence on the context. But like in English, there's things where we're like, hang on, was it this word or this word? Well, in French, that might happen. You might have to actually just clarify, like, hang on, what are we talking about? Just, that's the faults in our language. So, and then these is like, nous serions, vous seriez. And what's really interesting is the difference between the conditional and the future simple is, like, for example, nous serions, there's just nous serons and vous serez. So even just pronunciation differences, like nous serons, nous serions. That's the only difference in a whole verb tense is the pronunciation between those two. So hope that helps. That's the conditional. Again, it's how to, before I wrap up, hang on. Let me just go back up to our first page. I'll just show you devoir and pouvoir. So, actually, let me just come here. So if you wanted to say, like, I would go, then it literally is like, je. We've got your IR is for to go, that's the root. And then your ending is AIS. Then we go back over here, put in the apostrophe, j'irai. This is I would go. If you wanted to say I should go, slightly different meaning. Because the would is implied in the ending, you have to, for the verb should, or for the word should, you have to use the verb devoir. So this is I would go. If you wanted to say I should go, now it's a little bit more complicated. You have your I is je. Your should you have to use the verb devoir. So you're gonna have DEVR, that's the root. Again, why it's DEVR and nothing else, who knows. Then you're gonna have your ending on whatever. AIS. So this is literally, it's like to have to, would. And if you would have to, then that's when they're like should. That's apparently how they got the meaning out of there. So this is should, this whole word, it's not like should would. It's like have to would. That's actually kind of what that breaks down to. And then you have just aller. It's like verb plus infinitive. Okay? Je devrais aller. But now, if you wanted to say, like, I could go, you have to use, for my could, we have to use pouvoir. So hard to see when it's all blue. It makes no sense. So you're going to have je. The verb could the root is P-O-U-R-R. Again, super random. Like where that came from, who even knows? P-O-U-R-R. Our ending is AIS. So this whole word literally is can and would, which then makes could, and then aller, je pourrais aller. So could, would, should. Conditional. I hope that helps. Thanks.